you seen the well-to-do up on Lenox Avenue, on that famous thoroughfare with their noses in the air? High hats and colored collars, white spats and $15, spending every dime for a wonderful time. If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you
have two people to do this? It does make it easier. Right inside, up underneath of the cover, put two little latches, one on either side. You gotta undo those first. Sometimes they take a little convincing. Okay, so before we can drain the motor, we want to run the fuel out, which means there's fuel inside the carburetor right now, which is this carburetor. And what we're going to want to do is make sure that the fuel is all drained from the carburetor by running the motor until it no longer has any more gas in the carburetor. And so if you'll see here, here's the fuel line. Comes in from the gas tank, which is back there, runs into a filter, then along here and into the little fuel pump, which then pumps it up and into the carburetor. So we're going to end up using this little toggle here. We're going to turn the gas off, but I want to get it started first. You might not be able to see this. May be able to tell it is running, so we're going to turn the fuel line off now. That will make it so no more fuel can actually get into the motor from the gas tank, and we'll just let it run until it stops, until it runs out of gas. Which, as you can see, doesn't take very long because this thing just chews on gas. Alright, so next what we're going to do is use what's called fogger. And here we have some here. Storage seal, Quicksilver, fogging oil. The way they instruct you to do it is actually to run the engine and spray it into the carburetor until the engine stalls, but then to me you don't get the gas out of the carburetor, and we don't want to leave it there for the winter. So instead what I'm going to do is just turn the motor over and spray it into the carburetor, get it in there some. It's not as good as what they're talking about, but at least it does coat to some extent the internal parts. So we'll start by removing the air filter here. This is the air filter, but it's also a flame retardant. It keeps flame from shooting out of the carburetor. So we just unscrew that. Alright, so that's the basic 4-barrel carburetor. And so what we're going to do is spray it into here. Alright, so I'm going to spray some more fogger in there while I turn it over. This is also a nice thing to have a second person for, if you have one, because you don't have to do both things at the same time. So a little fogger straw goes on the side. What we're going to be doing is draining the water jacket of the engine. So the water jacket, in essence, wraps the engine in water. And it's circulated by a water pump, which is over here. Circulate around all of the engine. Actually, there are these two little cartridges underneath the engine sort of attached to the side of the engine where water circulates, and on one side the transmission fluid circulates to cool it, and on the other side the oil circulates to cool it. So we got to make sure all of that water is out. And to do that, we'll need a couple tools. Typically a nice big screwdriver and maybe a pipe wrench, usually not, but I bring one just in case. Most importantly, the set of wrenches that you'll use mostly to take off these little nuts that plug holes in the engine block. We're going to open up and pull those nuts out, let the water drain out of the engine block. So we're going to start here on the right side of the motor. So we're going to come down and under here. I'm hoping there'll be enough light to see. There. See that brass nut? Right in the middle of the screen. So we're going to loosen that. The exhaust manifold is this gray thing. And so then, right in the sort of the front of it, right there, there's another nut, which we're going to take out. All right? Alright, so I got the other one off, and you can see it's draining. So this is the one that's on the exhaust manifold. So that's draining now. Again, that was also a 9/16. So now we'll go to the other side. Probably taken the same video 4 or 5 times because I forget to turn it on. Okay, we're going to move to the left side of the motor. This is or the starboard side, if you're a boating aficionado. And look at my gray my hair is. Holy mackerel. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to loosen up the 2 nuts. There's one on the engine block, one on the exhaust manifold. And we're going to take those out and ream a little bit with this guy. Make sure we got good water flow. And those are all of the nuts we have to take out. The next thing we'll have to do after that is to remove some hoses. All right, we're on the left side of the motor. Here, there is the nut that we're going to remove. Again, that's a 9/16. As you can tell, the motor was once red, then it was blue. And we're going to ream that one. And then here, right on the manifold, right there, is the nut we got to take out to drain that. It's pretty simple. And that's the small one. So that is probably, maybe it's 7/16. So let me go get the 9/16, get that off. Okay, just to show you, there's the 9/16 wrench on there. And we're going to turn this again counterclockwise, just like we did the other one. Okay, I've taken it out. There's that nut, and you'll see it's completely full of rusty gunk. And you'll see also that it's hardly dripping. Nothing's coming out at all. So we got to ream that baby. Oh yeah. Really get it cleaned up in there. You get good flow. Okay, so the small nut here is a 7/16. 7/16. So we'll do the same thing. Counterclockwise. Okay. So now you just got to make sure you've taken both of these. And you got to put them in the cup. And actually, what I would do is just kind of ream out that gunk in there, rinse it out, so when you come in the spring, it's not filled with crudola. Okay, so there are our four, excuse me, the four nuts or bolts. Actually, I'm not even sure if screws. What the right language is for that. So just make sure you keep those. I usually put them down in this corner over here, so I know that they're there when I come back in the spring. Now we're going to break a couple of the water lines, and I don't mean literally. Basically, we're going to remove them and then push them down into the bottom of the boat so that they'll drain. This is where you need that big screwdriver. So if you see here, this one, blue one here, goes underneath the motor. See if you can see that. So this blue one goes underneath the motor, comes up, attaches here. Did I miss that? Where am I? There. Attaches here. So it comes up and attaches there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to loosen up this hose clamp right here. And then we're going to pull that hose off of where it's attached. Loosen it up. See, now the hose clamp is nice and loose. And then you kind of have to wiggle and pull it to get it off. I don't know if I'll be able to do this while I got the camera on. We'll see. If you get a hold of it. There we go. And then take it and you feed it down. Here it is. Kind of scooch it down underneath. And you see water start to flow out. So water flows out of it. This hose goes directly onto the oil cooler, and we don't want to have any water in the oil cooler over the winter. So that's the best way to do that. Alright, so then the next hose we're going to take off is, you see, the one comes up here, attaches here, but that's really hard to get off. So what I typically do is I take it off down where it attaches. You can see down below there's a copper and a canister. That is the transmission fluid cooler. And we're gonna, you can see right on the front of it, I'm not getting the focus there. There we go. There is a hose clamp. And we're gonna loosen up that hose clamp and then pull the hose off. See the hose clamp right there. That's why you need a big screwdriver. Just loosen that up. And then the challenge is to wiggle this thing off. This really is a two-handed job. You got to get a hold of the tube and the hold of the canister and pull. Okay, so taking off that, pull the hose off. You'll see the hose is disconnected now. And then I just like to grab the canister and kind of tilt it up a little bit from the back. Make sure water gets all out of it. Push it down. Wiggle that a little bit. So that way we can be sure that there's no water left in there. And that's all of the parts that need to be disconnected to drain the water. So the next thing we're going to do is actually lift the boat out of the water. So you can go ahead now and put all of these back on the little wire thing. Back on this, because you won't be needing these for a little while. You've actually, no, I don't think you'll use these again. Now we've got the water drained from the water jacket of the engine. We're going to put the compartment back on actually before we lift it up. A little easier to get it on while the boat's still in the water. So we're going to put the cover on, and then we're going to start jacking it up. Try to remember to put this piece in before you put the cover in. Otherwise, it's a pain in the ass. Pain in the something. Okay, so next we're going to start hoisting it. Actually, not jacking it, because we're pulling from the top, not pushing from the bottom. So I'm going to get the chain hoists and hook them up. So we put the hoists typically back here. You can see them there in that box in the corner. So we got to drag that out. We also need these. Now the boat ends up resting on these, so we might as well bring those out while we're doing it. The goal is to get the hook through both chains. Now, it's really high right now off of the top of the boat because the lake is low. So what I'll tend to do is the box that these things are in, I'll get that and sit that on the deck of the boat so I can climb up on top of it so I don't have to lift so high over my head. So we leave the cover on, so I do as little damage as possible to the boat. With this, like that. A pretty stable surface to stand on. So those are the chains we got to hang this thing from. When I was 30, this was a lot easier. Okay, get the hook for both chains. You see that there's a D and a U. Figure that out. So we're just going to take this down. Better to use a good wrist in that. People who, haven't been doing this as long, they tend to like the jerky. You want smooth flow, smooth flow. Just like in the bow, got a set of chains hanging from the rafters there. It's actually an old railroad tie that runs along the top there. And as you can see, the chains wrapped around twice, and we got to do the same thing, get the hook through both of those. Okay, so here's the box on the towel underneath the chains, and now we're going to climb up and see if we can get those hooked without falling in the water. Okay. Whew. Over both chains, so you can see that. And I'm going to hook up this chain. Same motion. That's left-handed. To start hoisting, I suggest you take a look inside the boat and make sure that you've got everything out that you don't want to have in there over winter. Things like tool bags, underwear, whatever you've left in there, get it out now. what I tend to do is get the stern a little bit out of the water. Then I'll go and get the bow out, and we'll tilt the bow up. Make sure all the water drains out through the back. Alright, good. So now the stern's out. We're going to move to the bow and lift that out. And once we get the bow clear, then we're going to get in and take the drain plug out. You'll see water draining from the exhaust pipes. That's really critical to make sure that water drains out. I may even go up a little bit higher with the stern of the bow, even though right now it looks like the bow is a lot higher than the stern. The exhaust pipes sort of slant down in the boat, so we want to make sure that we definitely get plenty of height on the bow, have that water run out to the stern. This also helps a little bit with some of those hoses in the engine. Get them to make sure the water is getting out of those at the same time. So a little bit more, a little higher. So we definitely have nice and high in the bow now. That means that we can undo the drain plug, and as we tilt the boat back and forth, it'll help water drain out of the at the bottom, the inside of the boat, because obviously we just put a lot of water in it, draining the motor into there. So we're going to take the front seat out, the battery and the drain plugs in there. Probably could have taken the battery out beforehand. Makes it maybe a little bit easier. But I got to go back in the boat to take the drain plug out, so taking the battery out also is not that big of a hardship. It's a little rocky, as you can see, because it's not sitting yet up on the beams. It's still just hanging. So you have to be a little careful going in and out. So it slides forward and tilts up, and then slides back. So now, let's put the seats out. We're actually going to sit it up. It sits up here, runs from the engine compartment to the stern there. It just helps over the winter. We put the cover over it. Helps to keep the water from pooling. Got the seat out. There's the seat sitting back there that we use to attach this. Used to be a butterfly. So we'll take off the positive and then the negative. Just try to get a little movement. There we go. Get that loose. Batteries out. Now we're going to probably making you very dizzy. Ooh, look at that double chin. Down on it. So just unscrew it. Then, see, look at that. There's the world below. Word is there's a storm brewing. Could be. I'm going to raise it from the stern now. Try to get the stern up high. That'll push water toward the bow. Hopefully out the drain hole. And all in the tricep. The stern is almost up high enough. Let's go back to the bow. I don't know if you can see it, but she's draining. See? It's a good sign. I still think we have to go up a little higher to get the boards underneath, so I'm going to do just a little bit more. Same way I keep doing it. See, you've got more water coming out now. That's why you gotta, have the stern down, lift the stern up, with the bow up, you kind of have to rock it back and forth. Make sure you get all the water out. Okay. So I'm going to get the beams down from up above and start to position them. Again, this sounds a lot easier when there are two people. Just want to say that. You know who you are. For those of us that are a little more height challenged than the rest, this is a little difficult job. That's where the box comes in handy again. Also probably something that could or should have been done on post as well. The boards should all be marked with whether they are bow or stern, east or west. There's an east bow. Here it's east stern. So just in case you're not sure, Daga runs east to west. So east, west. There are some lines on the inside of the dock where we're going to place these things. I'll show them in a minute. If I'm going to get this one up, then we'll adjust it. When you're looking from the other side, you'll see that there are a couple lines that run vertically on the side of the dock. And just like the other one, bow east stays on this side. Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring that up a bit more. My bow gets one beam, stern gets two. These are the shims, and they'll just go underneath the boat. Still got to go up a little higher because we want it. They'll sit. The boat, see, they're cut like an angle, so the boat sits on it. Shims have a bigger support there. They have a steeper angle. Okay, so this just sits on the board, but on the other side we put a shim underneath of it. So this is the shim we use, just a piece of 2 by 8, I think, pressure treated. Sits, there's another line you'll see. It says shim and cradle, shim and cradle. Put that there. Put the cradle over top of it. And now we're ready to lower the boat onto the cradle. You get to the point where there's some looseness, then you know you're sitting on your cradles. Let's do the stern. Celeste, water's been drained. Got the battery out. We've put fogger in the motor, or we've hoisted it, and now we just need to put the cover on it. It's a board just like this. What we're going to do is just run it from the windshield back to the cushion, just to keep snow and rain out. You can see there's that board. Just put it right up on the windshield, runs back to the cushion. It's going to make the cover sort of tent a little bit so things will run off of it. See, when you have two people, you don't have to walk back and forth as much. All high and dry. And if you're going to say something about the fact that it needs some bottom paint, well, you're darn right it needs some bottom paint. Okay, I got that. I'm all over it. I'm going to put some bottom paint on that baby. Here we go. Just that's about it. So the same with the bow. You just want a little bit of tension, not too much, and we're all done.